Looking at here is where we're going to start looking at how do we think the ways that people explore, navigate, discover content changes. So what you'll see here is this single image. And this is an image that's made up of 6,000 images taken at this particular art exhibit. Some are professionally taken, some are amateur photos, user-generated. And this addresses one of the challenges we've had in the industry, which is what do you do with all these user-generated campaigns where typically we'll show all these images in a gigantic thumbnail gallery, which is not the best way to try and discover content. So if we click play, and last time we did this, that's what started the whole buzzing thing, but you'll see it works this time. So this is what we call a deep zoom experience. So you can come in, out of that single image, you can come in and see high resolution, very detailed details of the images themselves. And you can navigate around, and when you scroll back, it all resolves back to that nice single image. And this, from a creative standpoint, is a big deal because now we have ways that content can be, user-generated content can be displayed in a way that services a single brand idea or image. Now if we hit pause here, thank you. What I'm going to show you as what we did further is, hey, beyond just taking pictures, bringing them together in this cool little deep zoom way, we also did something where we took a technology that was developed by our research labs called SenseCam. SenseCam is a camera that you wear on your neck, and it's about this big, and it takes pictures every 15 or 30 seconds, whatever interval you set it to, and also looks for changes in lighting conditions. So have you gone outside from a darkened room or vice versa, and just takes those pictures. And what you can then do is create these stop-action photography short films. It's very low resolution, it's low production value, but that's kind of the point. It's a way that we see the democratization of media can be quite powerful from the standpoint of, in one case, we just put these in the galleries and you had stop-action photos of people coming in and looking at the art in that herky-jerky kind of way. But we then said, hey, why don't we give it to one of the artists and have her wear it around her neck and see how she explores the art gallery. So if we hit play, thank you, you'll see, again, not terribly high resolution, low production value, but you step inside the shoes of, in this case, an artist. It could very well be a consumer. It could very well be, as we've played out these scenarios, Madonna on tour backstage, or I think more interesting, Madonna on tour on her day off in Peoria, right? What does Madonna go see in Peoria on her day off on tour? I think is, in many ways, maybe as interesting as the concert itself. And how do we take the notion of putting more media power into consumers' hands and then bringing them into a brand experience? This is an example of photosynth where we can take photos, synth them together by looking for the common imagery and then creating a 3D experience out of photos as well. Just a couple more examples of where allowing consumers to tell their stories more fluently through technology and the ways that it can now become part of our display, digital display landscape and the ways that we can bring them into brands. Now, the next example goes even further. If we think about photography as one area of innovation, this is where we look at maps. And mapping, it has gone through tremendous transformation over the last 5 years, right? The work that we've done with Bing Maps, what Google's done, and the ways that mapping has gone from a physical piece of paper to an interactive experience that really helps you get you where you want to go is awesome. Very utilitarian, very, very effective at helping you achieve the task of going where you want to go. But can mapping become a form of storytelling? And can brands enter into the conversation in some way? And can this represent where we want to go is where we think there's an interesting challenge. So if we click play, this is a map of Seattle. And what we've done is we've incorporated what's called street side photography, right? So these are the cars that drive around with the cameras on the hoods and you can on the roofs, and you can see the street side photography. What we've done beyond, however, is this. You can drill in within the mapping experience, and let me be clear, this is not a product for sale. This is now showing you around the block and around the next zip code. Virtually visit a retail location, right? So you're seeing the images stitched together. This is the culmination of the different things I just showed, deep zoom, photosynth. Enter into the space, look around, spin around, have it tagged so you can actually go to the back of the cafe, turn around there and get the full view of the experience. So now we've taken, again, fully utilitarian experience of maps that help you get around to, okay, what might I be able to do if I could create these kinds of immersive experiences where even the artwork on the walls is something that I can drill into, zoom all the way into a single piece of the art, and if I wanted to include metadata to show artist name, how much does it cost, where do I buy it, I think you can begin to see where this technology has some immense potential from the standpoint of, obviously, commerce, right? How do we create virtual storefronts where you can do this and you can recreate the retail experience physically in the virtual world? But where brands might use this from the standpoint of the Gucci brand, right? And being able to show you the actual Gucci factory and see where the stitching is so lovingly made for that handbag that you're going to pay so much for, right? And the ways that consumers can then tell their stories about how they interact with brands or value propositions, right, that might be offered. Lots and lots of different ways that we think about this possibly, again, advancing the notion of storytelling and in digital display. We also, let's go ahead and play this one, think a lot about not just the ways that we can navigate these virtual worlds through browsers and the ways that we've seen so far, but also through sound, namely speech, and also through motion. And so in the rich media side, obviously, you know, everyone's familiar with the capabilities that are there. This is an example where for the film Rio, we created a natural user-facing experience with just a webcam, right? So you come in, the user has a webcam on, and it's basically playing Simon, right? So a light will flash, the user triggers the same flash, and the character rewards you by doing a dance. Really, really simple, but actually very, very effective in conveying, in this case, what the brand wanted to convey, which is this is a story about a parrot named Blue. It's just weird, funky, socially awkward, but really, really, really energetic character, and getting to interact with that character. This implementation, obviously, is here and now. Where we look for the future is where we are very, very excited in terms of, again, storytelling and the future of digital display. If you think about avatars, and this happens to be my avatar, which is frighteningly close to my actual physical appearance. I used to have a lot more hair when I created my first avatar. Unfortunately, when you have little kids, they don't let you get away with not accurately representing your receding hairline as you get older. This is where we see lots of opportunity. Now I'm going to be clear. I'm going to start talking about the Xbox platform, but I don't want to talk about Xbox. I want to talk about what we can do and think about what we're starting to do on Xbox as we have high-resolution capabilities with something like Kinect, and where that will go on the PC and the overall digital experience as that technology becomes more pervasive, not just within the gaming context. So some of you have probably seen or heard of Avatar Connect. I think it's not well known enough because it is, in fact, an amazing technology with huge potential for taking what we do with social, taking what we do with interaction, and turning it into something that has a whole new meaning in the digital space. So if we click play, what you're going to see is, because Kinect now can see facial expressions, finger motions, you can create avatars that speak for you. And what we've set up are 15 different environments. For example, a tailgate party where you can argue with your friends online about who's going to win the Huskies versus Ducks game. And I haven't lived in New Jersey long enough to come up with the appropriate local. Is that good enough? So then, you know, you've just watched Mad Men. Gather your friends around in a TV hosted show and talk about what you liked or didn't like about the show. Think about book clubs. Think about any interaction where groups of friends are getting together and having avatars that, again, fully represent facial emotions, gestures, speech, and then being able to share that as an experience through Facebook, other social media, and being able to extend how that plays out. Co-hosting a sports show, campfires. This is, again, really powerful notion. At which point now I will say, if you are normal, most of you are probably thinking, why the hell would I not just have me and my video on there instead of an avatar, right? Just show me, like that exists, right? That's called Skype, which is also something I'll talk about a little bit later. Here's what we've learned, right? So obviously we are very, very deep in the office productivity space, and we've done lots of research and we spent lots of money going deep on how do we create really, really high resolution HT cameras that can be used in the workplace so that you can telecon with your colleagues in Beijing and London and wherever in super high definition, super clear, awesome authenticity in terms of representing you. And what we found starting 3 or 4 years ago when we started doing this research is, guess what? Nobody wants to be represented in authentic HD, high clarity visual because most people, if not all people, would in fact like to look a little bit better than they do in real life. And so what did we start developing? Blurring technology for the workplace, right? So we can blur out the wrinkles and the lines and this, and also the fact that we started developing technology that blur out the background so that if you're at home, you don't see your cat running in the background. You don't hear the dog barking in the back. All those things we've all experienced on conference calls, especially video conference calls. So it's this insight that leads us to people would rather be better looking, better dressed, more hip, cooler, taller, more hair, all those things. And that's what the avatar allows people to do as they represent themselves in this world. So you'll hear a lot more about this because it's not just us. Many organizations are looking at how do we facilitate social in ways that convey both gesture and voice and video, but do it in ways that actually help people feel good about themselves instead of having them constantly feel down about the fact that, wow, I really don't look great when I show off to my friends. But the idea of being able to share opinions, emotions, stories is something that we're very, very excited about. I will, in the interest of time, thanks to the building supervisor who kicked out the plug and shut off the power to turn on the alarm, we have a number of units that we are starting to roll out from our labs. Actually, you can just go ahead and play this. I'll just talk over it. Where we can take 30-second TV spots and layer on top of them an interactive ad experience. So this happens to be an ad for the Toyota Prius. And within the Xbox environment, we can add in, hey, say Xbox near me. Xbox triggers the speech recognition. Near me triggers where is the local dealer that's closest to where I happen to be now. So being able to find closest dealer and then being able to send a text to your phone so that you have the address, you have directions, all that. So this is the kind of immersive experience that in the advertising community we've all been looking for. And how many times have we heard about interactive TV ads for the last 40 years, right? Well, this is a way that we finally see possibilities in terms of overlaying these kinds of speech interactions. Finally, I'll end with just a short story about my own experience and how we see this, particularly as we look at Skype and other things that are coming down the road. A couple of months ago, my parents decided that they were going to move to Los Angeles and retire there from Philadelphia. So they said, hey, can you help us box up our stuff? So I went over there, went to the house, and discovered these boxes of stuff that I had actually never seen before. Pictures of me as a child, pictures of my parents when they're getting married, my dad's high school identification card, and it was just amazing to see all this stuff. And my mom told me about, during the Korean War, her family got separated from her brother, who was in Connecticut studying in grad school at the time. And they completely lost touch. And what he managed to do was get an old tape recorder, the reel-to-reel tapes, recorded a message, took it to the local army base and said, I know this is a long shot, but can you send this to Korea? Here's my mom's name, all the family members' names, and my aunt happens to own a hamburger restaurant in Seoul, and I'm guessing maybe that there's GIs who go to that hamburger restaurant, can you just bring it there and see if this can get to my family? And it got there. And my mom and her entire family gathered around this reel-to-reel cassette and listened to a message from her brother, who they had not heard from in 3 years. Now, it took 4 months for that tape to find its way to my mom and her family. I think it's astounding that this is now how we talk to one another. And this is just one generation, right? My mom's generation to our generation. And when I was at my parents' house, I said, hey, I want to talk to my daughter, Amy. And this was through Windows Live Messenger over Xbox, right? Through Pure Voice on our TV. So I think it's always good to remind ourselves how much advancement that really takes place in such a short amount of time. And particularly as it relates to the notion, again, of taking that film camera out of the center aisle, center row. What I found out the next day when I came home and brought this box of photos back home was something I wish I had recorded, which was my daughter on Skype talking to her grandmother and grandfather back at home with the box of photos, holding up each picture saying, Grandma, Grandpa, what's the story behind this photo? So the notion that that technology is now being used as a way for my daughter to connect with her grandparents through visual images, through conversation, is a really good metaphor for how we think about the digital space and the way that storytelling, the way that human interactions, and the way that emotions can be expressed. There's a big area of development and how do brands enter into those conversations. We've spent a lot of time thinking particularly about things like Skype and things like Connect. All right, what role do brands play in terms of facilitating these conversations and providing those moments where consumers provide their own stories that then ladder up to the brand story? So I know this has been a really quick overview, but just wanted to give you a sense of the ways that we're thinking about the exciting things that are to come in the digital display space, and really look forward to partnering with each of you in terms of how we get there, how we bring it to scale, and how we continue to move forward. Thank you very much, especially for your patience through the alarm.
Thank you, Steve. We have time. Anybody have any questions?